The New England stone wall. It's something that you'll come across along roadways. In fact, seemingly at random in the middle of the woods, you'll come across stone walls. Would it surprise you to learn that Napoleon unwittingly helped build many of these stone walls? Here's the story. To understand what happened, you need to understand how important sheep were in the world at that time. Of course, they were used for meat, but more importantly, they were used in the textile industry for their wool, making warm clothing, making blankets, things like that. And then Spain developed the iPhone of sheep, the Merino. Merino sheep were considerably smaller than typical sheep of the 1800s, and yet they produced way more wool per sheep. They were prolific. The Merino was super capable of making a lot of healthy babies and of thriving in a cold, wet New England climate. And this wasn't something that you could say about all sheep of the 1800s. They didn't do great. They didn't produce super well in cold, wet climates. But all of those characteristics and traits and features took a back seat to the wool that was produced by a Merino sheep. This wool, it was mind-blowing to people of the 1800s. You see, normal wool was coarse and rough and wasn't necessarily as durable as it could be. And then there was this Merino wool that was soft, super fine, and incredibly durable. Here's the problem. Spain knew how great Merino wool was, and so they made it illegal for Merino sheep to be sold and shipped out of the country of Spain. You could buy the wool, but you couldn't buy the sheep. They took it so seriously that they enforced an embargo on all sheep being shipped out of the country. They had the Navy carefully monitor all shipping traffic around the country to prevent their prized sheep from leaving. And it probably would have stayed like that if it were not for one man named Napoleon Bonaparte. Around this time, Napoleon had signed a peace agreement with Spain, but it was more of a peace or else type of a relationship, and as a result, Spain was busy kowtowing to the interests of Napoleon. Napoleon was concerned about the British moving into Gibraltar, and so the Spanish Navy was focused on preventing that from happening unsuccessfully, and other naval pursuits that Napoleon thought were more important. As a result, they kind of forgot their day job, which was monitoring what was coming in and out of the country. An enterprising man from Vermont took this moment in time to export some sheep. His name was David Humphreys, and he was the U.S. ambassador to Spain. He took this moment in time to enlist the help of some Spanish merchants and purchased 100 Merino sheep. He then planned a very circuitous route to get that ship from Spain all the way over to the United States, even at one point disguising the sheep as other types of animals. But how does that get us to all of the stone walls in New England? I mentioned earlier that Merino sheep are prolific, but to give you an idea, in the late 1700s there were between 50 and 100,000 sheep in all of the United States. But not much longer after Humphreys had smuggled the sheep into the United States, in 1810 there were over 7 million sheep in the United States. Very quickly that became 30 million, and towards the end of the century, in 1884, there were over 50 million sheep in the United States. Remember that I mentioned that Merinos produced a higher quality wool? So much so that Merino rams would sell for as much as $1,000 and more each. That's over $24,000 in today's money. Essentially, Merinos were the crypto of the day. Everybody was investing in them. And then they realized they needed someplace to put their investment, to keep it safe, to keep it from wandering off. And so were born hundreds, if not thousands of miles of stone walls. New England Yankees were a practical bunch, and so it was an obvious choice for them to use the abundant stone found throughout this region. You add to that the docile nature and the strong impulse to flock together for a Merino sheep, and a simple stone enclosure was all that was needed to keep your investments safe. And imagine, at least to a small degree, it was all made possible because the Spanish Navy was distracted by a conquest-obsessed Napoleon. Thank you for hitting the bell icon, liking and subscribing. Those actions literally make it possible for me to make these videos. And thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you like this video, you might like these.